Hi, I'm Bruce Braden. I'm the editor of Ye Will Say I Am No Christian, the Thomas Jefferson John Adams correspondence on religion, morals, and values. Today I'd like to start reading for you letters from this book, starting with the letter of John Adams to Thomas Jefferson, February 10th, 1812. Although you and I are weary of politics, you may be surprised to find me making a transition to such a subject as prophecies. I find that Virginia produces prophets as well as the Indian Territory. There have been lately sent me from Richmond 2 volumes, one written by Nimrod Hughes and the other by Christopher McPherson, both upon prophecies and neither ill-written. I should apprehend that 2 such mulattoes might raise the devil among the Negroes in that vicinity, for though they are evidently correct, they are not much more irrational than Dr. Towers, who wrote 2 ponderous volumes near 20 years ago to prove that the French Revolution was the commencement of the millennium, and the decapitation of the King of France but the beginning of a series immediately to follow, by which all the monarchies were to be destroyed and succeeded by universal republicanism all over Europe. Nor then Dr. Priestley, who told me soberly, coolly, and deliberately that though he knew of nothing in human nature or in the history of mankind to justify the opinion, yet he fully believed upon the authority of prophecy that the French nation would establish a free government, and that the King of France, who had been executed, was the first of the 10 horns of the great beast, and that all the other 9 monarchs were soon to fall off after him. Nor than the Reverend Mr. Faber, who has lately written a very elegant and learned volume to prove that Napoleon is Antichrist. Nor than our worthy friend Mr. Joseph Wharton of Philadelphia, who, in consequence of great reading and profound study, has long since settled his opinion that the city of London is or is to be the headquarters of Antichrist. Nor than the prophet of the Wabash, of whom I want to know more than I do, because I learned that the Indians, the sons of the forest, are as superstitious as any of the great learned men aforesaid, and as firm believers in witchcraft as all Europe and America were in the 17th century, and as frequently punish witches by splitting their skulls with the tomahawk after a solemn trial and adjudication by the sachems and warriors in council. The Crusades were commenced by the prophets, and every age since, whenever any great turmoil happens in the world, has produced fresh prophets. The continual refutation of all their prognostications by time and experience has no effect in extinguishing or dampening their ardor. I think these prophecies are not only unphilosophical and inconsistent with the political safety of states and nations, but that most sincere and sober Christians in the world ought upon their own principles to hold them impious. For nothing is clearer from their scriptures than that their prophecies were not intended to make us prophets. Pardon this strange vagary. I want only to know something more than I do about the Richmond and Wabash prophets. John Adams. Thomas Jefferson replies to John Adams, April 20th, 1812, from Monticello. You wish to know something of the Richmond and Wabash prophets, of Nimrod Hughes, I never heard before. Christopher McPherson I have known for 20 years. He is a man of color, brought up as a bookkeeper by a merchant, his master, and afterwards enfranchised. He had understanding enough to post up his ledger from his journal, but not enough to bear up against hypochondriac affections and the gloomy forebodings they inspire. He became crazy, foggy, his head always in the clouds, and rhapsodizing what neither himself nor anyone else could understand. I think he told me he had visited you personally while you were in the administration, and wrote you letters, which you have probably forgotten in the mass of the correspondence of that crazy class of whose complaints and terrors and mysticisms the several presidents have been the regular depositories. McPherson was too honest to be molested by anybody, and too inoffensive to be a subject for the madhouse, although I believe we are told in the old book that every man that is mad and maketh himself a prophet, thou shouldst put him in prison and in the stocks. The Wabash prophet is a very different character, more rogue than fool, if to be a rogue is not the greatest of all follies. He arose to notice while I was in the administration, and became, of course, a prophet subject of inquiry for me. This inquiry was made with diligence. His declared object was the reformation of his red brethren, and their return to their pristine manner of living. He pretended to be in constant communication with the Great Spirit, that he was instructed by him to make known to the Indians that they were created by him distinct from the whites, of different natures for different purposes, and placed under different circumstances, adapted to their nature and destinies, that they must return from all the ways of the whites to the habits and opinions of their forefathers. They must not eat the flesh of hogs, of bullocks, of sheep, etc., the deer and buffalo, having been created for their food. They must not make bread of wheat, but of Indian corn. They must not wear linen nor woolen, but dress like their fathers in the skins and furs of animals. They must not drink ardent spirits, and I do not remember whether he extended his inhibitions to the gun and gunpowder in favor of the bow and arrow. I concluded from all this that he was a visionary, enveloped in the clouds of their antiquities, and vainly endeavoring to lead back his brethren to the fancied beatitudes of their golden age. I thought there was little danger of his making many proselytes from the habits and comfort they had learned from the whites, to the hardships and privations of savagism, and no great harm if he did. We let him go on, therefore unmolested, but his followers increased, till the English thought him worth corruption, and found him corruptible. I suppose his views were then changed, but his proceedings in consequence of them were after I left the administration, and are therefore unknown to me. Nor have I ever been informed what were the particular acts on his part which produced an actual commencement of hostilities on ours. I have no doubt, however, that his subsequent proceedings are but a chapter apart, like that of Henry and Lord Liverpool in the book of the Kings of England. This letter, with what it encloses, has given you enough, I presume, of law and the prophets. Thomas Jefferson. And I'll close this episode with these two letters, to be continued with other readings in the future. Thanks for watching.